All these things we think are weak, but when we actually deal with them and we're honest, they make us stronger leaders.
Yeah.
They make us more secure, and they make us stand on that firm foundation that does not come from within.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Good Business. Guys, I'm so excited about my guest, Jose. He's my pastor, and he has a lot to share today about what is going on in Wimberley, Texas at Cypress Creek Church, and what has been going on. And the reason why I wanted Jose here is he has got quite a bit of experience walking through some trials. And if you've been in business for 4 or 5 years, you probably know some of those trials as well, but I wanted to really hear Jose's perspective. And also just as he's dealing with tremendous growth in his church and in his organization, I think it's just so important to hear from him about how he's navigating that, the hard times, the easy times, the good lessons learned, the tough lessons learned. So we'll talk about that. So Jose, thanks so much for being here today. Yeah. It's a blessing.
I'm honored to be here. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. Well, Jose, would you do me a huge favor and just tell me and the audience who you are? I know who you are, but... Yeah.
My name is Jose Abaroa Estavillo from Mexico City. I moved to Miami, Florida at age 6, and then to Houston, Texas for high school. And then I came to Texas State University. That's when I started following Jesus. So that's when my life transitioned in a big way. And I never thought that I would be in a church. Definitely did not think I'd be leading a church in my life, but I find that both fun and ironic. And I came back with my wife. We moved to Wimberley in 2014. And then in 2020, on January, I started as a lead pastor, navigating through the fun season that was all of that.
Awesome. So January to March sounded nice.
Yeah.
And then March onward, that sounded not so nice. So do you want to walk me through what the first 3 months look like? And
so
beyond?
My thought was, here we go. I'm going to step up and start leading the church, and then be in people's living rooms. Yeah. And get to know, I had already been there. That was the church that I started attending when I became a follower of Jesus. And so I knew a lot of the people, but I didn't know them as their pastor. So I really wanted to hear from them, be in their living room, enjoy that, intro to my tenure. And then, March didn't take too long. That did not last. And so living rooms were closed, and we definitely learned how to navigate a lot of that together. One of the biggest lessons is that we really aren't in control of so much. And so really differentiating what can I control versus what is out of my control was really important to embrace at that time.
And from what I know, because I wasn't in the church at the time, but from what I've heard, you brought a different perspective come January towards technology.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about how that impacted the church as you headed into COVID.
That's actually a fun story, because a week before everything shut down, we decided to try out the live stream for the first time. Just put cameras, try to see if we can do this just in case. And I don't remember if you recall, but many people thought this is going to blow over. It's not going to be a big deal. And so I'm really glad that we got that run through the week prior. Next Sunday, we were live streaming just one camera, and we were, doing our best to figure things out. I had the right people next to me, which was huge. And I definitely did not plan that. It just happened. And we got to figure out day by day what problem we needed to solve next. And now we live stream. We still got a ways to go in terms of growing that, but it's been an open door. It's been that first door that many people step through the church before they attend in person. They're coming to the live stream first. Yeah.
So that actually leads into my next question. How have you seen your church transform through your digital role? I mean, you mentioned it's feeding people in. I mean, it gives them a chance to, in a really scary way. It gives them a chance to experience the church before they show up. But I mean, how have you seen that change the culture in the church?
Yeah, that's good. Another thing was not just the live stream, but we had people in living rooms. We had people in homes, people that didn't have a lot of resources. So we wanted to resource people with, hey, here are these daily devotionals. Every single day, you're going to get an email with a short little thing that you can read so that you can have hope. We started recording a podcast.
Yeah.
And so we sent that out on a weekly basis. We're just going to have a conversation about the message on Sunday, break it down, less formal, ask more practical questions. So our heart really was to resource. Another thing that happened in the summer of 2020 with all the social unrest, we were not only isolated, but now we were being fractured. And so we realized through the Conversations podcast, that's what we call our podcast, we wanted to foster conversations about these difficult issues. Instead of thinking and making assumptions and judgments, why don't we have conversations with one another and have some honest conversations, things that we know, things that we don't know, so that we can break that barrier that was really present then, still is now. But conversations are a way to do that. So resourcing the church was a big thing that started then.
I love that. And I mean, that's a testament to good leadership, because if you can't have a conversation with someone, then I mean, you that opportunity for speaking life in truth into their life is not possible.
Yeah, that's right.
So when you think about leadership from that context, and this would apply to both business and nonprofit and church, how do you see that play out? That approach of just building these conversations and asking the hard questions, and I mean, how do you see that affecting the culture?
Yeah, one of the things that I loved during that season was, there was this guy. We went to college together, but we weren't actually close friends in college. We knew who each other was. He was a couple years younger than I was. He was he was in coding. He had a great business, and I needed some help on the church side, and he had some gifts that I was looking for. And so I asked him, hey, can you help me with this, and that? He was instrumental on the live stream. And then he also taught me that Amazon's approach and the way that they beat all the competitors was they didn't look horizontal. They looked at who their customer was. And so they asked the question, what is the need? And then they went to meet that need better than anybody else did. And as a church, that's what we should be doing as pastors and leaders, is asking the question, what is the need of my people? What are the needs that we can meet? What are the things that we can do to help somebody get through hard times, resource them with biblical truth? And so that perspective really changed the game for us. And Jeff Bezos, I guess, has some things to teach church leaders.
Yeah. As a leader, I think the natural inclination, especially in a for-profit space, but even in the nonprofits, there's a hesitation to asking tough questions and addressing tough issues, because in this day and age, like, there's so many risks tied to that. But I think being bold and brave to address those from a biblical perspective, if you're a Christian leader and you run a business or you run a nonprofit, I think you absolutely need to be asking those tough questions. You need to be addressing that within your business culture, your church culture. Otherwise, those fractures will happen. Yeah. And so it's exciting to see that there is evidence of that taking place where there was protection over the church because you've addressed all that.
And so, I think that we tend to, it's human nature to be in an echo chamber, to surround yourself with people that think like you, talk like you, dress like you, and we're just naturally drawn to people like that. And if we're not careful, we will create an echo chamber where we're just around those same thoughts that other people think. And the church, the first church, was a combination of 15 different cultures that came together, right, in Acts chapter 2. And so you see diversity from the get-go. And we should have diversity of opinion. all the while knowing, hey, we stand firm on these convictions, and conversations are have been a way for us to bridge that. And again, asking the question, what do people really need? What is the need that is right in front of me versus, trying to solve a big problem or issue that may not be ours to solve.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's pivot a little bit. I want to talk about the church. So, Wimberley is, it's
It's a small town.
unique culture. It's very small town, but it doesn't feel like a small town when I walk into church on Sunday morning. Just expanded to 3 services and it's packed. It's very packed. What's happening in Wimberley, Texas?
Well, that's a good question. If you have any ideas, let me know, because I'm still trying to figure it out. I think that one thing that's happened post 2020 is that people are hungry for truth. People are hungry for something that is unshakable, that is firm, and that in some way is unlike anything that we see, something that is eternal. And so obviously we believe in a gospel and in this good news that Jesus is that firm foundation. And so we're very welcoming. We want everybody, whether they're angry at the church or hurt by the church or curious about the church or have been going to church their entire life, we want everyone to feel welcome and seen. All the while, we are firm on what we believe. And so, expounding from a biblical text during the message and singing songs. I think it is something that people post-pandemic are hungering for. So, it's amazing to me because, again, I was that guy that did not want to go to church. I was that guy that thought that the church was this, corrupt institution, and now we're seeing this amazing growth in the church, which is very exciting and, fun to navigate through as well.
So what when people think growth for a church, especially if you're not very familiar, you think, there's more people showing up on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
When you think growth, what does that look like?
So we call our room, the sanctuary worship center, our living room, because the church started in an actual living room with 46 people, and we were committed to a small group gathering, a church made up of small groups versus just a church with small groups. Yeah. So growth, or healthy growth, should mean getting smaller, gathering in smaller groups so we can have those conversations. And so right now, the challenge for our church is we have a lot of people gathering in that living room on Sundays, and we need more people gathering throughout the week in smaller living rooms so that we can really be doing life together and not just attending a Sunday gathering.
Yeah. And last I checked, we're well over 100 baptisms this year, right?
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Almost there. Yeah.
So there are people's lives who are truly being changed.
That's
believing in Jesus and committing their life to Him, and that growth is just it's such a beautiful thing to see, and I'm sure it's an even more exciting thing to be able to directly be a part of.
I really think that each of us play a significant part, in this whole thing. It's not just one person. It's not a pastor-led thing. It's a God thing through a lot of people. I think there's some similarities there in organizations and businesses too, because something that can stifle growth is this mentality that it's all me, or everything is reliant on me. But when each person in an organization or a business feel that sense of healthy entitlement. I have something to offer. I'm significant in this place. That only adds exponential growth to whatever is going on. So I really feel like that is a special part of the growth right now in the church, and certainly something that I hope continues.
I love what you just said. In other words, leadership is about humility.
Yes.
And I think if you plan on being in a leadership role, what you're really planning on doing is being in a servant role.
That's right.
And in a role where you need to be willing to say you're wrong and do things you don't want to do and handle hard things.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you've seen that leadership look like in your own life, how that's developed over the past few years since 2020. I can only imagine lessons learned through all of that. So I know that's a big question.
It is a big question, but when you said that about servant leadership, when I was growing up, I wanted to be a band director. I wanted to be in front of a band and lead, the flutes section and the clarinets and the trumpets over there, and make sure that everyone knew their part to play. And I think that, again, the conductor's out in front, but if one person goes out of tune, if one person starts playing the wrong part, that really messes with the whole. And so I think one of the lessons that I'm still learning and working on is making sure that we have the right people playing the right parts and playing the right instruments on the team, and then even as a church, and identifying those and making sure that we, I really think it's a fluid thing. It's not it's set and then you move on. We, in our team culture, we call it an assignment, a divine assignment. And so an assignment has a start date and it has an end date. Yeah. And when you complete that assignment, okay, what's my next assignment? That can be the same role, different task, or it can mean a change in role or something to that end. But seeing that more fluid picture of a conductor, making sure that each part does its own special work, helps me lead through both the tough times, which they were very tough, but also through these times where we're seeing a lot of growth and excitement.
Yeah, that's great. So what do you think biblical leadership is? I know that's another
leadership. Yeah, servant
big
leadership.
Question. Yeah.
Servant leadership for sure. Also stewardship.
Yeah. So expand on stewardship. How does one lead as a steward?
We've all been entrusted with something.
Yeah.
Maybe we think it's just a little bit, or maybe for others, we look at the amount that we have to steward influence-wise, resources-wise. Maybe our position is one of great stewardship. Regardless, whether small or big, it's been given to us. Think about, again, I was born in Mexico City. It was just coincidence that I landed in Miami, and happenstance. I mean, all of these little pieces come together to build this story that is our life. And so you really can't say, I built this, or this is mine. Does that make sense? And so I think that there's humility there. And I also think that knowing what you have been called to steward is huge. If it's small, steward that really, really well. Maybe your position isn't all that great right now. If you do the little things well, it's one of my favorite Bible passages in Luke chapter 16. If you are entrusted with little and you are faithful with little, more will be given to you at some point. Maybe that looks like the way that you want it to, maybe not. I'd be curious to hear what that's been like for you on your end.
Man.
Have you done biblical leadership in your position?
Oh, goodness.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
I guess so. Way to turn the tide on me. Man, I think from my experience, it's just been a series of lessons learned over a lot of life.
Yeah.
So I think my most foundational part of leadership was learning how not to lead in a really unhealthy environment. I was on the mission field in Haiti, and I was under the leadership of a man who was, in simplest terms possible, abusive, and that put me into a really interesting perspective on, hey, I don't want to lead like that. And that was supposedly in a Christian leadership role. Right. And so that was formative in a lot of ways to learn, okay, I know that's not right. Yeah. That's not how anyone should be leading if they're desiring to honor God. And it was because it rooted in pride. And so fast forward, going through numerous experiences where I was under the leadership of individuals who struggled, and then here I am thinking, oh, wow, I also struggle with that, even after seeing so many examples of what not to do. And I attribute a lot of the good things in my character to my parents and just leading me well in that and teaching me about what it looks like to have a relationship with Jesus and really how to treat others. But to your point, it's all boils back to humility. I mean, if you think that you're something, then you will be made nothing.
Yeah.
I've seen personally when my pride gets in the way, not only do I not get to enjoy the fruit of the labor that I've put in, but when I'm leading out of pride or arrogance, I mean, things don't go well. They literally don't. So, I mean, it's just not even a good idea to think that you're anything
that's really
outside of who God has made you to be in the position He's put you in. But ultimately, to your point, I think it all boils back down to humility. And
I love that you shared those experiences, tough experiences, and you've made something beautiful out of that. You didn't let those bad experiences go to waste.
Oh, sure.
They formed you for the better.
Yeah.
And I also think in leadership, it's really hard to say that you're not doing well at times. It's really easy to hide behind this idea that I'm the leader, I have everything going well with me.
Yeah.
And yet humble leadership is really honest leadership.
Yeah.
And being honest with yourself. How am I doing? How am I doing at loving God?
Yeah.
How am I doing at loving people? And if those things are out of whack, then that's a trigger warning that there's something in us that needs to be changed. A couple of years ago, the year after the pandemic, we got hit with an ice storm here. And it was massive. I mean, our roads froze, Snowmageddon.
Yeah.
We thankfully got to the church because that's where all our equipment was so that we can stream into people's homes, but we barely got there. I mean, we didn't have the right vehicle, and so we were slipping and sliding, and we got there all good, made it home. And then fun story, we had just gone to Colorado, so we had some snow chains
for
our minivan. And so I was A-OK driving all around the slippery, icy roads while these 4x4 massive trucks, were on the ditch. So that's not the story. The story is that something really hard happened in my family, and right at that moment, and I kept on feeling a lot of things in the weeks that came afterwards. And the best thing that I could have done is raise my hand and ask for help myself. And so I got into a good counselor. I started dealing with some of the things that I was not aware of from early childhood, and all these things we think are weak, but when we actually deal with them and we're honest, they make us stronger leaders.
Yeah.
They make us more secure, and they make us stand on that firm foundation that does not come from within. It comes from, in my case, my faith. In our case, our faith in Jesus.
Yeah.
Right? And so not being afraid to say you're not doing okay, I think is really important.
It's so interesting. I mean, the conversation never really comes up where I can say, I've been to a therapist.
Yeah.
That's not like the first thing you say when you meet somebody, but I mean, it took me about 10 years, but I eventually got to in 2021, my wife encouraged me. She was like, "Hey, you've got some issues." Which
2021 too.
Yeah, there we go, buddies. But yeah, I mean, the best wife is the one who's going to tell you something that you don't necessarily want to hear, and you need to hear it. Yeah. And that was a game changer because it was so important to address issues. I mean, going back to the leadership issues of me under an abusive situation in Haiti. I mean, it was so important to move on and say, hey, look, I'm not okay, and I never was okay, and that's a stroke of humility. It took me 10 years to actually have, but yeah, I love that you shared that. I think when it comes to being successful in leadership and successful in leading a team, I mean, at the height, so pre-pandemic, our company, we had 39 employees on staff and about 120 contractors we were working with on a weekly basis. And it was a lot. It was a lot. And there were points in time that year, 2020, where I just had to level with everyone and say, I'm not going to be able to make payments to you on time. I'm very sorry. And it was a very humbling thing to go through. And I think that made me, in many ways, a better person because of that forced situation and dealing with hard things. I mean, that softened me in many ways, and it broke down a lot of pride that I had of being this guy who's holding everything up.
Yeah.
And still fight it on a regular basis.
Right. That's right.
Because my natural inclination is just to fix it myself. But yeah, I mean, true biblical leadership is really just being in a role that is pointing people to Jesus.
That's right.
And saying, hey, look, it's not by my power. It's by God's alone. So
and leading by example too. And so one of the things that is so important is having our priorities straight.
Yeah.
And in leadership, we often think what I'm leading is what's most important. And that's not the case, especially in our case. Like we're similar ages, same, kids are similar ages. We have a full house.
Yeah.
I have 4 kids at home, 9, 7, 5, and 4. And before I am the leader and pastor of a church, I'm their dad, and I'm my wife's husband. And so making sure that our priorities are in order is huge, because who cares if we are successful in the eyes of a church world, which I've seen that too in the church world, where it behaves like a business or an organization, and then it comes at a cost of what's most precious to God, which is what we're called to lead first, and that's our family.
And I firmly agree with that. And I think when it comes to business, it is so tempting, and I'm sure in the church world too, it's so tempting to put the people who have your paycheck in hand as the priority. And someone told me many years ago, and it stuck with me, and it was like, hey, if they're not going to speak at your funeral, you have no business giving them any time.
That's
Don't
good.
stress about it, because your priority is the folks who are going to actually stand and weep when you're gone. And I think if you shift your mindset to only caring about those opinions and those relationships first, and then everything else is secondary, I think you're going to live a much healthier life.
Agreed.
And be a much healthier leader, frankly.
That's right.
So
that's right. At least a leader that people want to follow.
Exactly.
That are leading by example. So there's plenty of leaders out there, like the guy in Haiti, which, by the way, was that after the earthquake?
Yeah, right after
2010. Yeah, my wife was there too.
Yeah, crazy
right
times.
I know, it was crazy times.
So, well, obviously, I feel like we could talk about this concept for hours. I feel like we're just now getting into a rhythm. But when it comes to just kind of like what would be one key takeaway in your experience as a leader through a pretty severe crisis, and frankly, being thrown into it and saying, hey, good luck. I'm sure you had plenty of people supporting you, but what would be the one key takeaway that you would give to anyone in a leadership position right now, leading a team of people, leading a church, leading a nonprofit? What would that one key takeaway? Just one. Just one. Only one.
That's tough. I think it would be what I said prior, that be faithful with the little or the much that you've been given. And focus just on that, because we do 2 things. One, we focus on what we want that may be much greater, or we focus on what others have that we want. Yeah. I want to be like, and we turn around. There's a great story in the Gospel of John in the last chapter where Jesus is speaking to his 2 closest guys, John and Peter. Peter is as usual, the point of the lesson is through Peter, and Jesus is telling him that his portion is not going to be easy. He's going to have a hard end of his life. And it says there in the text below, it's speaking to the terrible death that Peter ends up facing. Then what Peter does is he turns to John and he says, well, what about him? he compares. Yeah. He's distracted and he compares. And then Jesus bluntly tells him, what is that to you? I'll do with him whatever I'll do with him. But what is that to you? Don't worry about these other things. Worry about what I've given to you. And then beautifully, Peter is standing in front of thousands later on in that first church gathering in Acts chapter 2. And so that's a pretty cool portion.
Yeah.
Peter didn't see that then because he was saying it's going to be hard. And I think if you're a leader right now, it's hard.
Yeah.
If it's not hard, then I don't know. Maybe
you should come be on this podcast. I don't know.
but hard leadership is important to face. And I think the biggest key for me in my experience is just every day, what are the 3 things that I need to really focus in on and do today, this week, this quarter, this semester, this year, and tackle things that way and live with some peace. Otherwise, it's, on my end, I'm not that good. It's overwhelming. I get overwhelmed.
No, that's so good. That's so good. Well, Jose, thanks so much for making the hike into the studio today and for sharing all this and jumping on a conversation with me. I'm encouraged. My heart is full. Thank you for just that reminder of what it looks like to be a good leader and to honor God in our role of leadership. So
appreciate the invite. It's been fun.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today, and we'll see you guys next time on Good Business.